my husband had spent 10 years secretly treating me like a financial plan he could sleep beside. I heard it by accident on a Thursday night while carrying laundry upstairs. Ethan was in the office with the door half closed, laughing with one of his friends over video chat. I was not trying to listen. That part matters to me because I still catch myself wondering whether my life would feel less broken if I had simply walked louder or coughed or made some noise before stopping outside that door. Instead, I froze. His friend said something about Ethan getting lucky, about marrying a woman who could fund an easy life, and then he laughed in this careless way that rich people in movies laugh. I almost smiled at first because it sounded so absurd. We were comfortable, yes, but not wealthy. I worked brutal hours as a financial analyst and earned good money because I barely slept and lived inside spreadsheets half my life. Then Ethan answered. He said all his planning paid off. Planning. That word entered my body differently than the rest. Not luck. Not love. Planning. His friend kept talking. He said he could never wake up next to someone who looked like me every day. There was another laugh. Softer this time. And Ethan laughed too. That was the part that actually destroyed me, not the insult itself. I have lived long enough inside my own body to know exactly how the world sees women who look like me. I have always been painfully thin no matter what I ate. My nose is too wide for my face. My mouth pulls downward naturally when I am tired, which is often. By 33, I had already mastered the art of pretending appearance did not matter while secretly rearranging my hair before every meeting and checking mirrors too often. But Ethan always made me feel beautiful, or I thought he did. Hearing him laugh felt like finding out the warmth in your house was artificial somehow. Like someone had been playing fireplace sounds through speakers while the room stayed cold the entire time. I stood there maybe 30 seconds longer. Maybe less. I honestly do not know. My ears started ringing. Then Ethan said something else I still cannot stop replaying. It's easy when you have the mindset. Like loving me was a task he disciplined himself through. Like I was tolerable if he focused on the reward. I walked upstairs quietly and sat on the edge of our bed staring at the wall while holding a pile of towels against my chest. I remember noticing one sock stuck to my sweater from static cling. Tiny stupid details become strangely vivid when your life changes suddenly. I did not confront him that night. Part of me was in shock. Another part was immediately embarrassed. That second emotion surprised me. I had just been humiliated by my husband, yet somehow I felt ashamed instead of angry. I kept imagining them laughing after the call ended. Imagining Ethan looking relieved that he no longer had to pretend with his friend. For hours I lay awake beside him wondering if every loving thing he had ever done was calculated. And the awful thing was that my brain immediately started collecting evidence. Our first apartment had been small and ugly, and somehow I suddenly remembered how quickly he moved in after learning my parents helped with the down payment. I remembered him encouraging me toward promotions while quietly avoiding ambition himself. I remembered every period of unemployment he explained away with difficult bosses or toxic work environments. At 2 in the morning, I found myself mentally calculating how much of our life I had funded over 10 years. Rent, vacations, furniture, emergency expenses, his unfinished business idea, his car repairs, the dog surgery 3 years ago. I hated myself while thinking about it because it made love feel transactional, and maybe part of me wanted to protect the marriage by refusing to count. But I counted anyway. Over the next few days I behaved normally on the surface. I made coffee, answered emails, attended meetings, cooked dinner once. Inside, though, I felt detached from my own life. Every interaction became unbearable because I kept studying him for signs of performance. When he kissed my forehead before work, I wondered if he practiced sincerity the way actors practice expressions in mirrors. When he touched my waist while passing behind me in the kitchen, my body reacted with confusion instead of comfort. The strangest part was that he seemed loving exactly as always, maybe even more loving. I started sleeping on the couch pretending late-night work calls were exhausting me. Every morning I woke up back in our bed with him wrapped around me. At first I thought I had walked there half asleep. Then one night I stayed awake long enough to feel him lifting me carefully from the couch. That almost broke me more than the phone call, because what kind of man uses someone and still carries her gently to bed? People are easier to hate when they are entirely cruel. Ethan was not entirely cruel. That made everything messy, eh? I spent days swinging wildly between rage and self-doubt. Sometimes I convinced myself I misunderstood the conversation. Men joked cruelly sometimes. Maybe he was performing for his friend. Maybe the planning comment was stupid male ego nonsense and not literal manipulation. Then I would remember his laugh. Or I would catch him glancing at my paycheck envelope on the counter too long. Or I would remember how every financial sacrifice in our marriage somehow came from my side eventually. One evening I opened old photo albums trying to reassure myself that our life had been real. There was a picture from our honeymoon where Ethan was looking at me while I laughed at something off camera. His expression looked so open and affectionate that I burst into tears instantly. I sat on the floor crying and hating myself for still wanting him to love me after what I heard. That humiliation settled deep inside me. I stopped wearing makeup to work for 2 weeks because suddenly trying to look pretty felt pathetic, like participating in a joke everyone else already understood. Then came another uglier feeling, jealousy, not toward another woman, toward beautiful women in general. I started noticing how differently men treated them. At restaurants, in elevators, during meetings. I hated how bitter I became internally. I am not proud of that period. One afternoon at work, a younger associate complained about being objectified constantly because of her appearance, and while I comforted her externally, part of me thought, at least men desire you without needing financial incentives. The thought disgusted me immediately, but pain does not always make people kinder. Sometimes it makes them smaller for a while. I became obsessed with memories, re-examining them, rearranging them. Our proposal suddenly felt suspicious because it happened 2 months after my major promotion. The expensive gifts he bought me started looking less romantic because most had quietly been purchased using shared funds I primarily contributed toward. I even questioned intimacy. That was the hardest part emotionally. I kept remembering moments where he looked at me with tenderness and wondering whether desire can be manufactured through comfort and dependency. I wanted certainty desperately. Either he loved me or he did not. But human relationships are uglier than that. About 3 weeks after overhearing the call, I finally confronted him. I did not scream. Honestly, I wish I had. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table shaking while he looked increasingly nervous across from me. I repeated his words exactly. Planning, easy life, mindset. I watched his face drain of color slowly. At first he denied context, claimed it was joking, claimed his friend exaggerated everything. Then he started apologizing too quickly, which somehow confirmed more than denial would have. Finally, he sat down heavily and covered his face. He admitted there had been truth underneath the jokes. Not because he never cared about me, he said, but because when we met he had absolutely noticed my financial stability and viewed it as part of my appeal. Part of my appeal. That phrase landed horribly too. He said he grew to love me genuinely over time. Grew to love me. As if love was moss slowly developing on a wall already built for another purpose. I remember staring at him thinking that if he had simply lied completely, maybe I could have survived it easier. Instead, he offered this terrible gray version of truth. Yes, financial comfort mattered initially. Yes, he enjoyed the security I brought. Yes, he sometimes felt insecure beside my success and joked cruelly to compensate around friends. But also yes, he loved me. I did not know what to do with that, because despite everything, part of me believed him. And I hated that part of myself immediately. For days afterward I wanted to punish him emotionally. I imagined leaving suddenly, selling the house, telling everyone what he said. Then guilt would hit because I still saw his ordinary tenderness everywhere. He brought me tea when I worked late, folded laundry badly but earnestly, memorized how I liked my eggs after 10 years. Nothing fit cleanly together anymore. I moved into the guest room eventually, not dramatically, quietly. He cried the first night. I listened through the wall feeling both vindicated and manipulated simultaneously. That contradiction exhausted me more than anger did. Part of me wanted him suffering. Another part immediately felt cruel for wanting that. Months passed strangely after that. We started therapy because ending 10 years together felt enormous and terrifying. Some sessions left me hopeful. Others made me physically ill. The hardest realization was understanding that I had ignored certain imbalances for years because being loved at all felt miraculous to me. That sounds pathetic, but it is true. Women who grow up feeling unattractive often become dangerously grateful for affection. We treat basic tenderness like rare charity instead of something we deserve naturally. I do not think I understood how deeply that shaped me until this marriage cracked open. There were moments I blamed myself completely. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I made him feel inadequate financially. Maybe my ambition turned our relationship into something uneven. Then anger returned because none of those things justified humiliation. Healing did not happen in a straight line. Some mornings I missed him so intensely I almost crawled back into our old routines just to stop grieving. Other mornings I looked at him across the kitchen and felt cold all over again. We are separated now, not divorced yet, just paused somewhere painful and uncertain. Sometimes he still texts me things he knows will make me laugh. Sometimes I ignore him for days and then cry afterward because silence hurts too. The cruelest part is that I still love him. Not consistently, not cleanly, but love does not disappear simply because trust does. And maybe the deepest heartbreak is not discovering someone used you. Maybe it is discovering they used you and loved you at the same time. Because then you spend months wondering which parts were real and whether separating them even matters anymore.